Hello, I'm Brian Sethurst in Los Angeles.
And I'm Alison Norrington in London, and welcome to the Story Hour.
The Story Hour sits at the intersection of storytelling and technology. We bring you the story behind the stories, how it's written, how it's produced, how it's distributed, and even the personal stories behind the storytellers themselves.
We talk with the master writers, producers, directors, authors, and technologists, covering it all from film and television to literature, virtual and augmented reality, and more, as well as the innovations in production, technology, and distribution that are changing the how of storytelling.
Our guest today is Katrina Wood, founder and CEO of MediaXchange, the TV drama accelerator. For almost 3 decades, Katrina and the international staff of MediaXchange have been bringing top television creators, showrunners, and writers from all over the world together to exchange best practices, new ideas, and new technologies to succeed in the global television drama marketplace. Welcome, Katrina.
Hello to you both. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Katrina, I have to say, Brian has referred to you as the superhero of TV drama. So since every superhero has an origin story, I'd really like to start by asking you yours.
Well, I think I am born in Africa, born in Kenya, brought up on a wheat farm in Tanzania, and then, was schooled in Africa, which was until I was about 17. Then I went to the Sorbonne in Paris to be schooled, shall we say, by the French in speaking French. And then I went to the University of East Anglia and did French and philosophy for my degree. And then probably what Brian is referring to is I then worked for The Who, the music group, for 2 years.
The Who, did you say?
Yes.
Rock and roll, baby.
Like
Did you really?
Thought it was the WHO, but in actual fact,
The Who's much cooler.
it was much cooler, but probably not in my parents' view.
No, probably not.
I am still waiting for Katrina's tell-all book from that period, because talk about storytelling. I've had the opportunity to participate with Katrina in several media exchanges and drama series labs and in various parts of the world. I've been in Norway with you. I've been in Sweden with you. I've been in France with you. I've been in Berlin with you, which was particularly entertaining. And on those late nights after everything was done, I'd hear these rock and roll stories. So we won't go there maybe today. Maybe we'll have you on for a second story when you release your book about
Yes.
The Who. But for now, I think it's time to talk about MediaXchange and actually what got you to start and organize MediaXchange.
Well, that's a sort of another story, because it actually, I was running a company in fashion, and I had a store on Spring Street in Soho in New York, and I was hit by a car crossing the street. So I was in hospital for about 4 months, I suppose. And then I went, during that time, I closed the business because I couldn't run it from my hospital bed. And when I was convalescing, I went back to Kenya to be with my family for what turned out to be about a year. And while I was there, I was approached by the BBC to help them do some stories for their TV series on the Africans. So I did two segments for them. And so when I finally went back to New York, I kept getting calls from them saying, how do you do this? How do you do that in New York? So I started working with them on doing things in New York, and it gave me the idea of helping people understand how to work with America. And that led to actually what in hindsight was a stroke of luck. For those of you who are old enough to know Atlantis and the 4 guys from Atlantis, who were sort of at that time college boys, much like me, we came together to do a series on the whiskey barons in Scotland. And we worked on that for quite a long time. And then I introduced them to a British producer whose name shall remain unknown. And from then on, it just all fell apart. I think it was just as simple as they didn't really like each other. And so I thought, I will never again, work that long on spec. I would work I would be paid to do what I do. And so that gave me the idea of the MediaXchange, which was to I had started women in film and television in London. And so I knew quite a lot of women producers. And I sent them the idea, let's do a week in New York and a week in Los Angeles. And I got 14 of them, 5 from the BBC, various different independent producers. And they came to New York, and I showed them around New York and introduced them to Who's Who. And then we went to LA and did a week there, all, driving around in a van. It's complete madness.
Not far from the rock and roll life, I might add.
Not very far from the rock and roll life, because at one stage we had the handbrake on for about 25 miles. And so the place, it started steaming, the van. And
but this time it wasn't the drugs.
I love that it took you 25 miles to know that you'd done it. That's quite a way to go.
I have to say I wasn't driving, but it did bring us to a halt in the middle of Beverly Hills, very undignified, all of us at the side of the road, waiting to be picked up. By
people doing that in Beverly Hills.
Exactly. So that's how that was the first MediaXchange, which was in 1989. Is that possible?
I don't know. I'm far too young to know.
No, actually, yes, it would have been around then.
But didn't you say it's like 29 years now?
Yes. So
is it 29 years this year?
If you can do the math.
I was probably born around that time. So
the interesting thing about this is that you're bringing showrunners from successful American television shows, from successful British shows. I know you've done a lot of work in Scandinavia, which, thanks to our Scandinavian friends, I now know that when I'm in Scandinavia, I'm not allowed to refer to it as Scandinavia, but Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. But tell us a little bit about how it works. Allison goes around and she teaches storytelling at academies all over the world. And the question becomes, what is the opportunity for storytellers to, not just the networks, but other storytellers to learn from MediaXchange, and how does it work?
Well, I suppose what we're best known for is the week we do 2 or 3 times a year in Los Angeles called the Showrunner Exchange, which is a week in Los Angeles for people who are sort of best in class in their own countries and are looking to sort of explore the international tier of the industry. And they come to LA for a week, and we do a combination of breaking them into small teams, and they go and visit showrunners on their shows. And then, other sort of the whole group together listening to a panel of showrunners talking it to a specific theme. And this has been hugely successful. We've been doing it for 21 years. And actually, that's how we got to know the Swedes. Actually, no, it was the Danes who were the first in the Scandinavians. There was a wonderful guy called Sven Clausen, who was at the time working for DR, which is sort of famous for the killing and the bridge and things like that. So he came with us to do the exchange 4 times and distilled from his experience what he thought would be the way to apply American creative principles to what they were doing in Denmark. And that's how the killing came to be.
There's some great shows that have come out of DR. Brian and I worked on a lab with them, didn't we, a few years ago, on one of their new shows at the Festival of Television in Monte Carlo. That was one of our client briefs. There's some brilliant shows come out of DR. They kind of changed the game a little bit, I think, in terms of those kind of dark stories. Yeah, brilliant.
Well, I remember we had one of the European series drama labs, which I know aren't happening anymore, but one of them was when Lillehammer had just taken off. And there you had as a guest to lecture to us all, including us experienced TV folks, not to mention the people from various countries that had come to learn from them. The producers of Lillehammer talking about how it happened, and that led into this whole discussion of Netflix and what Netflix was going to do in Europe, and this was maybe 4 years ago, and just there wasn't. I just don't think that the programs that MediaXchange offers in terms of bringing people together for the exchange of information, I just don't think they exist anywhere else. And I've noticed that there have been even longer term relationships. I mean, I don't want to drop any names because I don't want to seem like that, but showrunners that I have met through you that I have stayed in touch with, that I have been able to exchange ideas and ask questions to. I just think this is my commentary, and then over to Allison to ask you questions. But I just think it is such a remarkable opportunity, and we'll talk about the programs that you offer. But to me, for people that don't know about MediaXchange and what's being offered there, it's like the world's best kept secret. There's so much to be gained from that. Over to you, Allison.
So my question would be then, it's now not the world's best kept secret because we're talking about it. So how do the showrunners get involved? Like, are they nominated to join, or do they apply to join? Is there a selection process? How do you get onto your list?
It really starts with the participants. So we market to our database the dates we're going to be doing the showrunner exchange, and the basic principles of what we do during the week, which is interview the different showrunners and have discussions around subjects common to both sides, and then companies, usually because it's not an inexpensive thing to do, sign up the people they would like to go on the exchange. So we have the group, and then we start talking to them and asking them what they want to try and achieve during the week that they're with us. And from that, we identify the showrunners that we feel are best, in line with their interests. And we approach them and ask them if they will, join the week.
It's a fabulous opportunity because it's kind of a little bit sort of the reverse of what I do, in terms of I get sent all around the world to work in different TV networks and studios and broadcasters, and I'm going into them for me to bring an international perspective because I do that in so many different countries and I have that international view. However, what you're doing, and the problem, I suppose, with that in a way is I'm going into somewhere like MediaCorp in Singapore and I'm talking to the people that work there under that umbrella, but they're not meeting anyone outside of their network other than me. So I'm coming in with my whatever I'm saying to them, depending on what I'm running at the time. But whereas what you're doing is you're creating like a central hub where they come to you. So unless you've got 2 or 3 people coming from the same broadcaster, you have an opportunity for them to meet people doing similar jobs and exploring different creative ideas, literally with an international feel. You maybe had 20 people in the room, all from different networks and from different countries, perhaps. So it sort of flips a little bit the way I do my work, because I'm like one to many, but you bring like many together with one core focus, and then you choose which showrunners they would go to see or visit or work with for that week to build on what they've got.
Yeah. By the way, we were with MediaCorp last year.
Oh, really?
And took a showrunner and his wife, Mark Goffman and Lindsay, who discovered in Korea the format for the Good Doctor.
Oh, right.
So they were well received. Yeah. But yes, I mean, I think that one of the other, great advantages of these groups is the people you're with.
Yeah.
Because the groups aren't huge. They're about 12 to 16 people. And so, when you get divided into groups, the groups are sort of 3 or 4. So you really get to spend a lot of time with people, and that's how the long-term friendships are formed. Yeah. And we survive really off word of mouth, and people just think of these times together with great fondness.
Mm-hmm. And I think as well, even from what I've seen with working in Singapore and in Hong Kong, culturally, what's cool is so different across so many different countries. Like some of the brilliant stuff that NRK have done is from, it looks like, say, with Scam, right? That kind of hit the wall, and everyone was going crazy for Scam, and all the different countries have tried to replicate the model. They spent years prototyping and testing different ways of reaching those target audiences on social and digital platforms. It looks like it was an overnight success. It absolutely wasn't, because of all the work that went into it.
Katrina we're both extremely familiar with sham, which is what it's, or scum, which is translated into shame, because Jude Adnam was actually part of a panel we did where we actually dug in. Remember that, Katrina? We actually dug in. Yes, I do. And Katrina, just as a little fun side note, I speak Norwegian. So Katrina said, I would love for you to moderate this panel with all these Norwegians, if you don't mind. And I said, no, it would be my pleasure. But this is just kind of a testament, again, to MediaXchange, because they're not just focusing on successful television shows in different countries. They're looking at the distribution models. They're looking at the technologies. I've had the opportunity in the Showrunner Exchange, to actually come in and put people inside a headset so they can understand virtual reality. So I wanted to just direct us a little bit to talk about some of the showrunners that you have worked with that have come and addressed these. And of course, you actually go to the sets or the writers' rooms in some cases, correct?
Yes, we do. Because everybody, I mean, it's less of a sort of a novelty these days, but the collaborative writing that is a big part of the American process is greatly admired outside of the States. And so having that experience and trying to duplicate what works for America back in Europe is quite a big part of what we do.
The opportunity for showrunners to suddenly discover Europe, I would love for you to talk a little bit about your experience with Frank Spotnitz. Frank
is sort of the poster boy of American showrunners who have made the transition from America to Europe. He was, in his youth, a journalist and was working in France. And I think he felt when he was, he was obviously a substantial success, having done the X-Files and Millennium and things like that. So he could afford the whimsy of coming to Europe and seeing what it would be like to bring his family up here. And so he moved wholesale to the UK, and is now, I would say, the biggest producer probably in Europe. Certainly, as an American, he's very, very high profile. And most recently, I think he did a series on the Medici. So he's done German series, he's done Italian series, and in as much as they're all in English, it's just where they're shot or the subject around which it's done. So he grasped very early on what Europe could mean to the States, because. I mean, the other thing is what coronavirus is going to mean to the States, to be honest, only sort of slightly joking, because it's going to level the playing field, which was already on the way to being leveled. But, Americans always were able to sort of hold their ground as to what their value is. But now they are much more interested in seeing what the possibilities are for them outside of the States as well as inside the States to grow their interests, beyond just their domestic interests.
So how do you see that rolling out like looking at our world post-corona, if ever that happens, it feels like right now it never will happen, but of course it will. We've all been seeing, of course, productions wanting to get back up and running again. I know that personally for me, I've been a little overwhelmed with pitches coming in for animation and games, because the studios can keep going in a way that shooting on set can't happen. So what's your thoughts on that? I mean, in terms of how you run something like MediaXchange in a world that's changing, in terms of us being proximity in a room together, but also in terms of how the industry might move on?
Well, that is the sort of $64,000 question, isn't it? I think everybody's trying to decipher what we are going to be left with going forward, because, well, us at MediaXchange in particular, we valued particularly the sort of people-to-people meeting, not the long-distance webinar approach. Yeah. So we've had to, reinvent ourselves very quickly and try and adapt what we do to the new not traveling. Who knows when we're going to be able to travel again with the way the airlines are, et cetera, et cetera. So we have, on your screens in July, we're interviewing 6 showrunners. We're introducing Eric Barmack, who is until very recently the head of originals at Netflix, now started his own company. John Worth, who's one of the showrunners who started the showrunner training program at the Writers Guild. Mark Goffman, who I said we took to Singapore, is doing the Umbrella Academy at the moment. Jeff Rake, who's doing Manifest, one of the very successful shows at the moment. 2 ladies, Liz Craft and Sarah Fain. And then Ben Stevenson, who used to be the head of drama here at the BBC, and left to go to J.J. Abrams' company, Bad Robot, and he's the head of television there. So I think it'll be an interesting group.
And that's happening in July, did you say?
That it starts at the beginning of July. The 1st of July is Eric Barmack, and then it's every Wednesday for 6 weeks.
So I want to talk a little bit about the programs that you're offering, because I also noticed there's a program for women writers. So
that's right.
I'm going to go to your page for a moment here. And if you could kind of like walk us through it for a moment, and just looking at what programs are offered.
Okay. The one that we've been just running this week is with John York, who is a very well-known sort of storytelling guru.
He wrote that great book, didn't he?
Into the Woods, which is sort of a comparison of US series and UK series and what makes a series. And he's a fabulously good teacher, very entertaining, very articulate, and very great information shared. So he's been with, actually this week it was with the executive group rather than the writers group, teaching, the executives how to, interact with writers, effectively, and what is it they should be looking for and how to fix things. So that's been a great success. And then we've got a film course after that, in next week, in fact, with Angus Finney, another person who wrote a great book called The International Film Business. He's a lecturer and used to be a producer, now thought better of that, like most of us do, and is really mainly as a lecturer now at Cambridge. And so he's going to do 4 days on film finance, because I think, with the way the world's going for film, people are going to to take a view as to how they're going to really deal with the film business going forward. So he's doing that. Then we're doing the showrunner one with the showrunners called The Role of the Showrunner, Meet the Creatives. And then we're doing one on the streamers, so that people understand how to work with the streamers, who the streamers are, what they're looking for, etc., so as to make better sense of it all. And we do another one that's sort of a follow-on from the showrunner week. It's called Connect to Hollywood, which is a week where you have a schedule of, I never know whether it's schedule or schedule, but you know what I mean. With a week of one-to-one meetings with people they want to pitch to in Los Angeles. So they bring out, we go over that with them, their creative materials, and sort of help them adapt to an American pitch, and then take them around LA to meet the good and the great, to see if they're interested in their projects.
Well, this conversation could go on for an hour. And even though we're called the Story Hour, we know that ideally online, 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
It didn't sound so good though, did it? The story, 20 minutes.
No, it just doesn't resonate.
Do it.
And I'm sure Katrina would tell us that. So the website where people go to learn more about the program is www.media.exchange.com, correct?
Yes, dropping the E. One word, dropping the E.
Dropping the E. I think that I'm actually able to put that in, Katrina. So let me do that right now. And to close out, how would you advise storytellers that want to get into the business today and make that jump from maybe the online programming that they're making or the ideas that they have to get into the future?
To be honest, it would be great if you were talented.
Really?
And you need to be able to show them your writing and a writing sample. I would say your best bet by quite a long way is to team up with a producer from your own country. Find if we're talking to Americans and they're coming to Europe, they should find an American who is familiar with Europe and the Europeans know them and therefore trust them, because it's such a business of trust. You have to find somebody who can open that door for you, who people trust and say, yes, this person really can write.
Katrina, thank you so much for being with us today. Our guest today has been our inaugural guest has been Katrina Wood, the founder and CEO of MediaXchange. I think, and Allison, I'm sure you'll agree with me, that we should have Katrina back in maybe 6 months to a year to kind of comment on the changes that will take place as a result of the pandemic.
Huge.
It's going to be very interesting to watch. And since you are the superhero of global television drama, and because you have your finger on the pulse literally around the world, we're going to look to you as the authority to kind of tell us how it's shaping up.
Well, I have a lot to live up to now, Brian, and I thank you both very much for having me. And I look forward to coming back.
You are very welcome. You have been watching The Story Hour with myself, Brian Seth Hurst, and Allison Norrington. We hope to bring you more great stories from great storytellers. But for right now, I'll say goodbye. And goodbye, Allison.
And I'll say goodbye.